Welcome to Lessons with Lindsay. My name is Lindsay Wilkes and I'm the owner of the Cottage Mama and author of the book So Classic Clothes for Girls. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to be talking about one of my very favorite things, scallops. I love adding scallops to children's clothing and home decor projects. I've got this pillow right here that has a lovely scallop edge, and I've also got my Janie jumper pattern here where I feature scallops going down the front of the dress. And I also have a dress that I've constructed here where I've used scallops and pretty trim here to accent the front of this dress. So I'm really excited to share my freezer paper method with you. I think you're gonna find this so easy and such a simple technique to add scallops to all your projects. So let's get started. So today I'm going to teach you how to change up my Janie jumper pattern. This is the original Janie jumper pattern here. It comes in size 6 month all the way up to size 10 years. And this can be found on my website, thecottagemama.com. The pattern includes 3 different variations. One is the scalloped front, as you see on the cover. And then the second version has a ruffle down the front. And then the third version has a patchwork center panel down the front. But today we are going to come up with a 4th variation, which I'm really excited about. So what I've done is I've taken my basic Janie jumper pattern and I have incorporated a horizontal scallop panel here on the top of the dress. So I've just used my regular A-line pattern and I've created an overlay here with my scallops going in a horizontal manner. And then I've also added a pretty button in the middle of each scallop. So today I'm going to teach you how you can create this overlay for your Janie jumper pattern. And it's going to be so much fun and add another variation that you can include when sewing this pattern. Now we are going to create the new version of the Janie jumper pattern. This top of this pattern is going to have a nice scallop edge here. Now, if you didn't want to create the Janie jumper or you didn't even want to sew clothing for that matter, you could still use this technique. You could use this technique in quilting. You could use this technique for home decor sewing. It really is just an overall scallop technique, but I thought it would be fun to incorporate it into an actual project for you today. So what I've done is I have taken the top of my Janie jumper pattern and I have cut not a full A-line, just the top area of the jumper. So I measured down approximately 2.5 to 3 inches on each side and then cut across the middle here so that it just gives me this top section for my pattern. Now you're still going to cut your regular plain A-line jumper pattern pieces, and this is going to be an overlay that's going to go on top of those pattern pieces. All right, so I need a front and a back for this overlay, which I have here. And what I want to do is I am going to place these pieces with their right sides together. Okay, and here I have created my scallop template. There's a couple ways you can do this. If you have my Janie jumper pattern, you can select one of the scallop pieces from that pattern. If you're looking to sew a smaller size Janie jumper, you may want to select one of the smaller scallop templates because that's going to give you a smaller scallop. Or perhaps you're sewing a larger size, you may want larger scallops. That's really going to be up to you how you want these scallops to look on your dress. But I have many different templates in the pattern that you can choose from. But say you don't have the Janie jumper pattern, and that's fine too. You can create your own scallop template by simply using a round object. My favorite round object to use are just those ball mason jars. You can either use the lid or the top of the jar and just create your own scallop template to the size that you'd like. So what I've done here is I have drawn my template. I just simply traced over it onto store-bought freezer paper. This you can find just with your saran wrap and your different foil. And it's got a shiny side here, you can see, and a paper side. I've traced my template onto the paper side of the freezer paper. And what I'm going to do is I am actually going to iron this freezer paper to my fabric. Now, don't worry if you're getting all in a panic because you're thinking I'm making you iron something to your fabric. It's not going to leave any residue. It's going to peel off really easily and you'll never know it was there. It's just a really, really nice tool for us to have to get perfect scallops. Okay, so I have my shiny side here and that's what's actually going to stick to my fabric. So I'm going to take my top of my overlay for my Janie jumper, and I'm just gonna try to angle it here. And I like to just stick a few pins in the top area, just to kind of hold it together for us. I don't really want to stick any down where I'm going to iron on my template. Okay, that should hold it in place for now. Okay, so I'm going to turn my template over, and I decided that with my Janie jumper, I wanted to end the sides with a half scallop. Again, this is going to be completely your choice. Perhaps you would like the end of your overlay to end with a full scallop. Completely optional, whatever you want to do here. So I'm going to actually move this pin here. I want to make sure that I find the center of my overlay here. So I just like to fold this in half and do a little press with the iron, and that's going to help me find my center so that I know what I'm working with. Okay, unfold this. Okay, and there's my center. I have 6 scallops here, so I know that my center is in between the 3 on each side. So I'm going to center this and line up the bottom edge with my freezer paper here. Okay, and then let's just take our iron, give it a press. Just want to make sure that I get this all pressed down. Okay, this is looking good here. As you can see, my freezer paper now is ironed onto the side of my fabric, and it's looking good. I'm going to add a couple more pins here to make sure I keep my pieces together. And this is what's a little bit different about using this technique. I am going to take this over to my sewing machine and I am going to sew on top of my template that I've drawn. I am not going to be using any type of seam allowance here. I am going to sew directly on top of my pencil lines that you see here. So yes, we are going to be sewing through some paper. So we're just going to pick this up, keep your pieces together, bring it over to your sewing machine. And let's see here, press our foot up, and I'm going to start here. There we go. Okay, let's take a couple back stitches and then we will get started. Okay, you don't want to rush this. Okay, so now we have sewn our paper to our fabric here. And you'll see, I mean, I'm not perfect. It's okay. We're going to even all this out here. So you just want to use this as kind of your guide as to where you are going to be sewing your scallops. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to just remove these pins. We don't need those right now. Put those aside. And we are going to tear off this freezer paper. Now, sometimes this takes a little because the paper can get a little bit stubborn, but generally if you're using polyester thread, it should be strong enough to withstand some tugging here and there. So I just kind of work off these different pieces here one by one. And if you did break a stitch for whatever reason, you can always just go back over that little section. Not a problem. You do have to get a little aggressive with it sometimes. I'll just keep working this off here. Not probably the prettiest thing you've ever done in sewing. And this is the technique that I use to sew the scallops on the front of the Janie jumper. So I go into some detail about this in the pattern. Basically, your stitching is perforating the paper to help it come off here. All right, we're almost there. Just getting all this off. Okay, I think we got most of our little paper bits off of here. Brush that off. Okay, let me move these to the side here. Okay, so now you can see we've got our scallop sewn in place here. So now what we need to do is we need to come back in here with our scissors and we need to remove the rest of this fabric here. Okay, so that we have our scallops. I'm going to take my pinking shears and I'm going to use those to cut around these curves because I think that really helps them to lay nice and flat. And then I'm going to take my regular sewing scissors and I'm going to come down into the dips of the scallops and try to get some of that fabric out. So here's what it's going to look like then after we have cut around the scallops and cut out some of the extra fabric here in these dips. And then what I want you to do is I just want you to open up your fabric and we are going to turn this right side out. Okay, now it might not look so good at first because we have not used our iron on this yet. So just give it a basic turn here. Just turn these as best you can. Okay, we've got this one here on the end. And this is where I like to take the smooth side of my point turner here, and it comes in really handy for smoothing out the curves of these scallops. So I like to just get this in here, kind of smooth that out. And again, this is before we've pressed. So pressing is what's going to make things look nice and pretty, and also you might feel like there's some puckering, but once we get it pressed, that may disappear. And again, it's very easy to turn it right back out and go a little closer. The thing that gets a little more complicated is when you cut through the stitching, but hey, everything can be fixed with a little creativity. So, all right, so now I'm going to grab my iron here and really work these scallops out to get them nice and smooth. Okay, I'm going to use my fingers and get this one here. All right, let's move over to the next one. I am going to roll this out with my fingers. Make sure we get nice and smooth. See how pretty our iron makes things look? Okay, so I think we're looking really nice here. We've got nice curves with our scallops. And wasn't that so much easier than having to use a seam allowance to sew those curves? I sure think it's much easier. So then at this point, all you would do is take this piece, this overlay piece that we've created here, and you would simply just lay this on top of your Janie Jumper A-line pattern, baste it to the front of the dress, and then sew as directed in the pattern. It's very simple. I added buttons in between on each one of these scallops. So if you'd like to add buttons, you can do so prior to constructing the entire dress. Best to get that out of the way so you don't have to go up inside the dress to try to get those buttons sewn on. But you could leave it as is, but I do think the buttons hold down the overlay since we are going to leave this part free from the rest of the jumper. Okay, so now we've finished our scallop project today. I hope you're inspired to create your own projects with these scallops. Think about all the possibilities. You could create children's garments. You could create home decor projects. Think about even creating things for your bedroom. What about a scalloped bed skirt or a scalloped quilt? I think those things would be so fun to use this technique. So thank you so much for joining me today on Lessons with Lindsay. I hope you'll check out some of my other tutorials and my upcoming project videos. I love sharing all this information with you. So until next time, happy sewing.